Let's get started with our first news. Joe Rogan reacts to Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Joe Rogan reacting to Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. Not everyone was left buzzing from the UFC 313 headliner earlier this month, and before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel further. Since Alex Pereira's loss, there's been a ton of talk about whether the UFC has a problem now with boring champions. But the way Joe Rogan sees it, not only was the fight entertaining, Magomed Ankalaev showcased that he's a force to be reckoned with, and then some. Long before Ankalaev was officially booked to fight Poatan, many fans and pundits argued that the UFC was deliberately avoiding the matchup out of fear that Ankalaev would end Pereira's reign. After all, over the last couple of years, Poatan has become one of the sport's top draws by bombing out multiple opponents. Winning 2 titles during that time hasn't hurt either. During a recent episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, he proceeded to outline why he was thoroughly entertained by Ankalaev's performance. We were just talking about how exciting the Ankalaev and Pereira fight was, even though people didn't like it because it wasn't some crazy result, a giant knockout like you get in most Pereira fights. It was so technical, and Ankalaev just did a fantastic job of shutting down the scariest guy in the division. What was so interesting was the consequences of exchanging with Pereira are so high, but also Ankalaev has knocked out a lot of people. We always look at Pereira's knockouts, but Ankalaev has knocked out some of the best guys in the division, and he's only lost 1 time. That was to Paul Craig, who has the nastiest triangle. It's so sneaky, so quick, and you don't expect it. He's so high level off his back, and he caught him with like 1 second to go in the 3rd round. A fight that he was losing. And Joe made another great point. Most people don't want to be on their back, so they don't even practice off their back. The common thought among coaches is, when you're on your back and there's 2 minutes to go, you're probably not gonna pull a submission off. You gotta concentrate on getting back up to your feet, minimizing whatever scoring your opponent has done while taking you down, and whatever shots they've landed. Mitigate those as much as possible, and get to your feet as quickly as possible. Yeah, that's what everybody is trying to do now. No one can deny that Ankalaev is an extremely well-rounded and talented fighter. We're talking about a guy who's lost just once, and that was 7 years ago. It's also true that Ankalaev has recorded some notable finishes, but he's also been involved in some fights that prompted more yawns than cheers. But what do you make of Ankalaev? And do you see him beating Pereira for a 2nd time if the UFC books an immediate rematch? Alright, let's move on to our main news. MMA community roasts Jon Jones's new look. Jon Jones recently showed off a new haircut and look on his social media, and man, the MMA community is roasting him for it. His haircut is straight out of Avatar, and of course, they also called out Jones for ducking Tom Aspinall while showing off his new hair. Fans were absolutely ruthless, and the memes started pouring in from all corners of the internet. It's almost like Jon Jones can't do anything without getting a reaction, and this time, it's all about his fresh, yet highly questionable new look. For years, Jon Jones has been one of the most polarizing figures in MMA. Whether it's his dominant performances inside the cage, his controversial past outside of it, or his tendency to stay away from fighters who are hungry for a title shot, he always finds himself at the center of discussions. But this time, it's not about his fighting skills, it's about that new haircut, and fans are having a field day. The MMA community wasted no time in letting their thoughts be known. Here's what some of them had to say. He's doing everything other than fighting Aspinall. When the MMA world needed him most, he vanished. The last airbender, Izzy would get called corny for this. Looks just like his prison jumpsuit from years back. So Jon, just checking in. It's been 4 months since you won the belt against, well, nobody basically. Ready to sign the contract for the clear next in line? Jon got a silly haircut and did some weird advertising for some insurance thingy. He go with Christ. Imagine bro fights like this. The arrow on his head indicates the direction he will be falling to the canvas when Tom knocks him out. Some fans even went as far as making edits of Jones in an airbender outfit, comparing him to Aang from Avatar, The Last Airbender. Others joke that his new hairstyle might just be a strategic distraction, keeping the MMA world talking about anything except his next fight.